Hi, and welcome to the Healthy Built Environment for Health Professionals training series. We are very excited today to be introducing Jade Yehia, who is a regional built environment consultant with Island Health. And Jade will be giving a presentation on a presentation titled Healthy Neighborhood Design. And now I'll pass the mic off to you, Jade.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all for having me here present on this topic. So as mentioned, I'm going to be discussing the Healthy Neighborhood Design pillar of the Healthy Built Environment Linkages Toolkit. So a little outline for my presentation is I'm going to start off by just talking about your own local environment and then moving into the Healthy Neighborhood Design aspects of that environment, the 5 elements that are really highlighted within the Healthy Built Environment Linkages Toolkit are enhancing neighborhood walkability, creating mixed land use, building complete and compact neighborhoods, enhancing connectivity, and prioritizing new developments within or beside existing ones. And I also want to touch on some examples to give you an opportunity to dig your teeth into that, and what you can do to help promote healthy neighborhood design. So as mentioned, let's start with your own neighborhood. What kind of housing do you live in? Do you live in an apartment, a single-family dwelling, a townhome, a row home, or do you live more out in the country where you don't have too many neighbors close to you? Who do you see on a regular basis in your community? Young, old, people and families, elderly, seniors, people of different diverse groups, animals. Who else are your neighbors in your own community? Is there green space nearby? Do you have a large park like Stanley Park? Do you have a small neighborhood park? Are there boulevards or greenways for you to meander along? How do you get to work? Or where do you buy your groceries? Do you typically walk? Do you commute on a bike, a motorcycle, a vehicle? Do you carpool? Do you ride public transit, SkyTrain? What is the means that you get around in your community and to work? And what do we need in a city or a town or rural community? We need places really to live, to work, and to play. And that kind of, I thought I'd highlight this excerpt from the District of Sanish's official community plan because I think it sums these elements up so nicely. Strong communities provide essential social infrastructure necessary for individuals and families to attain well-being. Social well-being encompasses 2 components: basic needs such as nutrition, housing, sufficient income, and public health, and safety, and opportunities for learning, faith, recreation, creativity, and artistic expression, community identity, citizen engagement, and cooperation. I think that sounds pretty nice. We really need to be healthy and feel well. It's our genetics and our influences that make us sick or healthy, but it's also our behaviors related to our local environment. Healthy built environments and healthy neighborhood design truly are making the easy choice the healthy choice, and vice versa. To help meet these needs, local governments, senior governments, and community stakeholders, we need to continue to work in partnership. We need to be able to access services, whether through biking, walking, scooting, boarding, skiing, or driving. And the health effects of the built environment are so complex. The built environment can influence physical activity, nutrition, and obesity, and can contribute to air pollution and increased rates of injury. Addressing this complex issue requires many solutions involving many stakeholders and decision makers. And that's a great quote from the Provincial Health Services Authority. So the best available evidence supports the following interventions. If you increase residential density, increasing land use mix, increasing road and pathway connectivity to promote walking and cycling, increasing public transit, increasing the availability of recreational facilities and parks, including bike lanes and paths, enhancing the streetscape design to improve aesthetics and safety for pedestrians and cyclists, and improve physical access to healthy foods and discourage junk foods through zoning and neighborhood design. So I think that's just highlights a few of the seeds of that we can work to try and foster and grow elements that these interventions really can improve the health of the residents that reside there. So really we're talking about the looking at from land use to travel behavior to health, and these are the kind of different interventions that I think we're going to be discussing over the series of workshops that planning investment really focusing on policies and practices. So those development practices, infrastructure investment, zoning, development fees. We're trying to influence urban patterns, and I could say rural patterns as well, density when and where appropriate, connectivity, and streetscape to really foster that walkability and that desire to walk and meander that path. Travel behavior, the amount and type of walking, cycling, public transit, and automobile travel. And these kind of elements impact our population health impacts, physical fitness, food choices, traffic accidents, pollution exposure, and community cohesion. So that's where I think the Healthy Built Environment Linkages Toolkit really does a great job in highlighting this pillar. And I would say, I'm kind of lucky in a way because the Healthy Neighborhood Design pillar incorporates all aspects, all pillars identified in the toolkit. But really, as mentioned before, it's enhancing neighborhood walkability, creating mixed land use, building complete and compact communities, enhancing connectivity with efficient and safe networks between, and prioritizing new developments within or beside existing communities. So you're not seeing that fostering of urban sprawl. You're seeing well-planned communities with amenities and services to sustain it. So really the vision is neighborhoods where people can easily connect with each other and with a variety of day-to-day services. So it's really like the 3 C's of a healthy neighborhood, I think, are incorporated into these elements: complete, compact, and connected. And really that active transportation is integral to those elements. So again, taken straight from the Healthy Built Environment Linkages Toolkit, I definitely encourage you all to go and have a look at these fact sheets and the summary diagrams. They're so helpful in linking these planning principles with the impact and the health-related outcome. So how do these elements connect and connect to health? It provides a great graphic representation of those linkages between planning principles, impacts, and health-related outcomes. And so, for example, for the Create Mixed Land Use Planning Principle, the evidence shows a strong link between walkability of neighborhoods and decreases in obesity and BMI, and increases in social cohesion and mental health. So really, you can conclude by looking at these linkages that there is evidence to support the conclusion that enhancing neighborhood walkability will improve people's physical, social, and mental health. So I think these 3 pictures do a nice job to kind of paint the picture of where would you like to live. In the image on the top left there, it's you're seeing that urban sprawl. You're seeing that development or series of complexes, almost looks like kind of a strip mall, is completely car reliant, very austere, not very walkable, not probably very enjoyable to walk within that community or within that development. But the other images I think show obviously some nice color there, but looking at that engagement with nature, looking at that availability and access to safe, nutritious foods like your fruits and veggies. And the role of communities in promoting physical activity, you'll see that, as I said through my presentation, I'm kind of hitting on some of the other pillars within the Linkages Toolkit, but that transportation element is so interconnected with healthy neighborhood design. Because people in walkable neighborhoods are 2 times as likely to get enough physical activity as those who do not. The number of children who are physically active outside is 84% higher when schoolyards are kept open for public play. Teens who live in poor or mostly minority neighborhoods are 50% less likely to have a recreational facility near their home. And trails, people who live near trails are 50% more likely to meet physical activity guidelines. This slide is an excerpt from the Active Living Research organization. And I think these stats really drill home some of the connections here. So as mentioned, the built environment and physical activity, they're so connected. And trip distance is really key. In the image on the left, it looks kind of almost like, I find like stitching, you know, but if you live in, say, one area of that cul-de-sac and you need to go, you know, little Johnny wants to go and visit his good friend Susie, who lives elsewhere in that development, again, likewise on one of those meandering cul-de-sacs, it's much more conducive to driving in that image on the left. Whereas the grid pattern on the right, yes, it is an urban environment, but much more conducive to getting from point A to point B because you're not having to take that meandering path. You're doing a much more direct route. And density. I would say yes, for sure. If you densify a community, that will bring you a variety of different housing options with preferably, you know, having commercial at street level, that vibrant community, but also that ability to walk to get to your basic needs, really important from a healthy neighborhood design perspective. However, I will say, and I think some of the other speakers will mention, that there is definitely too dense. And likewise, this is not appropriate for a rural community. So are there ways that we can foster like a little neighborhood node so that, again, that trip distance is not too great to get to services and needs and amenities? So as mentioned, mixed use, really great when you have those eyes on the street from a safety perspective. You also have that nice buzz and that you know, ability to recreate, play, but also get your needs like a little healthy grocery store right underneath you if you live in that apartment above. Really easy to walk. You're not going to get in your car to go to that restaurant if you look just right upstairs, of course. And quality infrastructure, also another key element. You know, looking at, say, Vancouver with the separated bike lane infrastructure that they're putting in, fabulous. Not appropriate for all communities, but are there ways that we can also create a community where it's people-focused rather than automobile-focused? Can you still put in those bike lanes? However, separated would be preferable from an injury prevention perspective, but there are other different initiatives that can be put into place. How are the sidewalks? Are they walkable? Do you have those nice street trees creating a buffer but also provides a little shade for those walking on a hot summer day, but also gives you that level of safety with having a little bit of a break between you and the busy traffic whipping by you. And likewise, public transit, so key for those longer trips that just aren't feasible, walking or biking for the average person. Children and walking to school. I think that this sound is, unfortunately, from the U.S., but I think it's still, the message rings loud and clear. But poor public space infrastructure in urban sprawl have coincided with a dramatic decrease in the proportion of children walking to school. So in 2001, when the study was done, only 13% of children walked to school compared to 42% in 1969. So active transportation may be especially important for children because they don't have access to a vehicle themselves. And school-age children who walk or cycle to and from school are more physically active overall, have greater cardiovascular fitness, and may have lower BMI compared to those who commute by car. The physical environment has a significant impact on whether or not children walk to school. Distance from home is, of course, the most important. Like, there's another study that I thought I might just highlight. In California, a study of 16 Californian elementary schools found that students living within 1 mile of school were 3 times more likely to walk to school than to travel by automobile. Other variables of importance include sidewalk quality, the parental perception of traffic danger and neighborhood safety, trails, physical activity facilities, so recreational facilities, houses with windows facing the street, walking or biking access to nearby transit, and mixed land uses. And I definitely want to just touch on this. I know the Linkages Toolkit doesn't really speak to this so much. I think you might find that version 2 will definitely incorporate this more so. Stay tuned. But social connectedness is really also such an integral woven component of healthy neighborhood design. A socially connected community is a place where everyone feels like they belong. Isn't that ideal, and isn't that nice? But 32% of British Columbians do not feel a sense of belonging to their local community. And Canadians with a strong sense of belonging are over twice as likely to report that their health is good. And health effects associated with social connectedness are associated with lower rates of heart disease, cancer, and better health among the elderly. In fact, social isolation, particularly among seniors, is a factor in the development of chronic illness and is as strong a factor in early death as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I always find that quote so shocking. So it's you may have seen, and I hope is the message that is coming across, is that it's a complex relationship between walkability and social connectivity. And some density thresholds do exist to this. You know, as I said, an apartment, a high-rise, you might feel more quite socially isolated in a high-rise of 60 stories because you're maybe less likely to know your neighbors than if you are in a low-rise building where there's less people within that building. So density alone is not enough, and it can actually be harmful. So it's important to build density with design features that promote a sense of safety, visibility. Social spaces are really important. Something as simple as street furniture can really help to kind of, have people linger in those spaces and enjoy them, enjoy that together. Commuting time is also so important to social connectedness as well. If you're going to spend, an hour to and from work, you're less likely to get out and enjoy your local community because you are having to, do all of your chores and your errands as soon as you get home. You're less likely to maybe get to the gym and exercise. So is there a way that we can incorporate a shorter commuting time or a more active commute? I think this slide is quite a powerful one, as it shows different the odds ratio of a stronger sense of belonging on the y-axis there for over the commute time in minutes on the x-axis. So really, the sense of community decreases with increasing commute time. We all know intuitively that commute times eat into our quality of life, but now we really have evidence demonstrating this. And a sense of community belonging decreases with increased commute time. Those who commute, that have a commute time of more than 50 minutes, are 56% less likely to experience a strong sense of community belonging than those with a commute time of less than 10 minutes. There's, out of some of the work done in the My Health, My Community survey, that 3 out of 5 people that were surveyed spent at least an hour commuting each day. And a lot of folks did say in this survey that if commutes were shorter, They would spend their extra time taking care of themselves by spending time with family and friends, exercising, and cooking. So I really wanted to touch on some examples and some health food for thought. And in my opinion, these examples are really great to kind of drill home this message. This is some work out of Toronto, but it just shows the spatial relationship between age and gender-adjusted diabetes incidence, and this activity-friendly index out of Toronto. So if you would just see here, the communities that are highly walkable actually have a lower incidence of diabetes than the ones that are not. This is some work done in Metro Vancouver that looks at the walkability and the air pollution within Metro Vancouver. And as you can see, the links to walkability and health are so immense. And here's another example. You know, it's if you look, communities that are highly walkable have a lower nitric oxide and lower ozone levels than in communities that with low walkability. So there's those sweet and sour spots. Here's another example, Falls Creek South, also known as the Olympic Village in Vancouver there. If you look, as the community grows, retailers, restaurants, and services suppliers have opened up in the village. And actually, in the summer of 2012, the community got some services from major drugstore, grocery retailer, liquor store, dry cleaner, park, bakery, restaurant. And in December 2011, so going a little bit backwards, but a new ferry dock was built in Falls Creek adjacent to the Creekside Community Rec Center. The new dock connects 5 points around Falls Creek and English Bay, providing access to non-motorized boats. And the Falls Creek community is committed to meet the leadership in energy and environmental design silver standard with the goal of meeting the gold standard. So the development actually surpassed this goal by becoming the second neighborhood in the world to meet the platinum standard in 2011. So the elements of environmentally friendly design were really integral to this development. I guess my only caution is you know, to some of this is you don't want to make it cost prohibitive for people from all walks of life to be able to enter into this market. But I think that there are so many elements within the Falls Creek South or the village design that really tie some of these healthy neighborhood design elements together. An example from my hometown in Victoria is the Dockside Green development. Is the biggest development of city land in Victoria's history. It's situated in the heart of City Victoria, and the community occupies 15 acres of former harborfront industrial land. So it's actually brownfield land that they reclaimed. And it's a planned total of 1.3 million square feet of mixed residential, office, retail, and light industrial space, with a network of diverse green spaces providing active transportation choices that include pedestrian and bike trails, dock facilities, and a harbor ferry to downtown Victoria. The other nice feature of the Dockside Green is that the Galloping Goose Trail passes through the site, offering key regional bicycle and pedestrian linkages. And public transit options include a vehicle sharing program and a mini transit system, servicing key points to downtown, as well as having a local grocery store integral to the development or adjacent to it. So yeah, some really great elements within the Dockside Green development to showcase. But of course, as mentioned, we're not all cities slickers, and we don't, you know, this may not work for all. I think going into a little bit more of a rural area, I use air quotes as I say that, depending on your perspective, but the district of Squamish, excuse me, it's really within their official community plan, they really bolstered that they're a spectacular seaside mountain community where people come to live, learn, work, and play in harmony. I think that really highlights what we're talking about here in the Healthy Built Environment Linkages Toolkit. But it's Squamish was an old resource town, and it's undergoing this transition. And so they're really trying to identify their natural assets and showcase them, and making it a destination for tourism and recreation. Definitely Squamish is now becoming a bit of a bedroom community for Vancouver with higher suburban development and the declining downtown core that they've kind of undergone. But in response to this growth and development, there's a whole series of 3,000 Squamish citizens, officials, probably more at this point, officials and other stakeholders that came together in 2005 to create this sustainable vision for the future of downtown Squamish. And it was really highlighting improving the ways of getting around through a network of commuter trails and pedestrian-friendly environments for downtown streets and public places. So yeah, another element that they incorporated so nicely into their official community plan. Going even a little bit more rurally here, this is actually, I was involved in a presentation a couple of weeks ago for a co-housing development in and around the Courtney area. So the regional district doing some really cool things there, and the city, on promoting co-housing complexes. So as you can see, there's kind of a series of loops within this development that boasts about 36 lots in total, but there's an area for parking, and then everything else within the development itself is walkable or scootable, or bikeable. And, there's some shared assets like a workshop and storage areas. There's a nice common house where they actually do some great potlucks and such. But then they also have areas that they restored, like the wetland. They've planted an orchard as well as a beautiful community garden. So ways that people can use some of those shared services, shared assets within the development, but it also keeps people socially connected and walkable within this beautiful little development. Lastly, I wanted to touch on an excerpt from the Regional District of Nanaimo. As this is in one of their electoral areas, but I thought this was a fabulous piece of work that they were looking at. How do we bring some of these principles into into an electoral area that's quite sparsely populated? And what they were wanting to do is actually support, and they incorporated this into their regional growth strategy, is to support clustered development. So where are the houses going to be sited, in this community, again, to get people to, be more socially connected within the development so that the houses aren't sparse and so far-reaching that the only way to get from point A to point B is driving, but they are more walkable. It creates a little bit more of a neighborhood feel. It also is beneficial, for wildlife habitat, aquifer recharge and water quality and other purposes, such as because this sensitive development or this style of development is minimizing environmental degradation, and it's also protecting streams, rivers, and ultimately water quality in this this type of cluster development. So I hope that I'm leaving you with some thoughts in your own mind of what you can do. What can we do as a health authority to support healthy neighborhood design? I just thought, I know I'm going to leave this really for others to cover off on, and we're going to be talking about this over the series of the workshop, this workshop and the one in February, but I thought some food for thought for you to consider is providing health evidence to support healthy neighborhood design. What about talking about some of these other examples? Oh, well, in this community they tried clustered development, or look at Squamish and the way they're prioritizing their developments around trails. Something that you could bring to another municipality to trigger their own thinking in this regard. So talking about those success stories, what about advocating for a healthy neighborhood design, liaising with your local governments, and offering support from your health perspective? I really want to thank you for all listening to my presentation and for your time. If you do have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me either via email there at jade.yehia@bhot.ca or my direct line, 250-519-3654. Thanks so much and have a great day.